Right, hi guys. Started the Q&As a few weeks ago, the live blogs. Just wanted to give you a little bit more info than I can give you on a text response, and questions have gone through the roof. Absolutely loads of questions coming in that I'm trying to get into these videos. Great to see that you're getting involved. So, you know, before I answer your videos, if you think of a question or you think of something that's, you know, frustrating you in fishing, get your question in. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to try and find out. It's interesting for everybody, so you know, just to see what you can come back to me. Right, quite a few questions this week. Hi Lee, this is from Rob. He says, hi Lee, following my match at Bank End yesterday, I have a couple more questions that have sprung to mind based on my experience. Commercial water is relatively alien to me, and two things dawned on me yesterday. One was the net position. When I have two nets, I really struggle where to put both my nets. Should I have them both to one side, in front of me, apart? That's really causing me confusion. The second one was clipping up on the feeder. Obviously, this means that when you chuck your feeder out and it's shallow, it goes pretty much straight down, but in deeper water, he's worried that it's going to arc back into him. You know, he found on the Gloucester Canal last year, he felt that it was arcing right back towards him. Right, a couple of really interesting questions there, Rob. First one is your net position. First of all, I'm going to say it's personal, the way you want to put your nets. For me, I put my nets straight in front of me. I've got a spray bar. I've got a new accessory bar from Preston Innovations that extends at either end, so it doesn't store away too long. But you can basically put up to 5 nets on this bar with the attachments. A lot of commercials insist on 2 or a £50 limit, so you're going to need to take at least 3. Just because it's a £50 limit doesn't mean you have to try and push that. You really only want to go to 40, because in your mind, if you go over, that fish won't count. You should never ever go over in your nets. I have done it. Loads and loads of people have done it, but you really should. You try so hard to catch a fish in the first place, what's the point in having them not counting? So for me, 2 nets straight in front on a accessory bar. I have them on quick change adapters. They literally clip on and clip in. You know, the clip lock stuff from Preston Innovations has made that so easy. So get some of those square blocks, get the bar. You can have them 2 clips straight in front of you. I do string the nets out tight along the bank. Okay, sometimes I peg them back in, sometimes I don't. To be fair, I do like to try and peg them back in if I can, because if you do that, then you're just keeping your net out of the way. So when you're playing a fish in front of you here, it's not getting in the way at all. Alright? Your second question is regarding clipping up. If you're casting in deeper water and as you hit the clip, your rod's directly in front of you, yes, the feeder will start to arc back towards you as it sinks. How much it arcs back towards you, it's difficult to say. Obviously, if you've done a shorter chuck, it's going to arc back more than a longer chuck would. Okay, but what I like to do is when I cast out, I bring my rod right back, almost onto my left shoulder, so the tip is pointing backwards. That means as I hit the clip, I can then bring the rod forwards whilst it's sinking to try and keep as straight a fall as possible. And you'd be amazed is as you bring the rod forwards, there's a massive amount of line there that you're making a difference. Because if your rod is pointing backwards all the way to forwards, obviously the rod's quite long, you're probably looking at 3-4 meters of line that you can actually follow down, taking away or making any arc very negligible. If you're chucking in 50 foot of water, I'd go somewhere shallower. Pretty simple solution. But 16 feet, 15 feet, all those on the Gloucester Canal and places like that, cast out, bring your rod back. As it hits the clip, gently go down with it, and then you'll feel it hit the bottom. You put your rod down. If you do the same every time, you're going to end up in the same place. Okay? Should help you. Okay, let's have a look at some of these questions then. Here we go. We've got a question from Paul Nixon. It says, I've been scouring the internet for a video demonstrating setting up and fishing flat lollipop floats. I have all sorts of difficulty shotting, positioning my pole and selecting the right size float. Can you offer some tips? I want to use the rig on my local river. It's 12 foot deep and to inch a worm along the bottom. Okay, Paul. I'm not going to do a detailed setup now, but I'm going to just talk you through a little bit how I do the flat float setup. It's really easy. possibly one of the easiest things. I think when you're fishing with a flat float, first of all, you've got quite a big bulk of weight, okay? So I don't like to mess around with fancy shotting patterns or anything like that. First of all, I generally tend to set my bulk around about, it depends, generally it depends, but about 50 centimeters away from my hook, where I attach my hook length. The length of the hook length is generally 30 centimeters, but what I like to do, okay, is I'll have my bulk, okay, and then a swivel down here. So between those 50 centimeters, there's a bulk. I didn't explain that very well, did I? Probably unclear, phone tinged and all the rest of it. So what I'm going to do, okay, you've got your bulk here, 50 centimeters away you've got a swivel, okay, and then you've got your hook length. Now what I like to do is make sure that this swivel is heavy enough to make sure my bait's going along the bottom. So I put 1 or 2 number 8s, depending on how strong the flow is, next to the swivel, okay. Now when I'm fishing an inch in my rig through, what I like to do is add some more shot halfway between the bulk and the swivel. Say like 3 number 8s grouped together. You can't use non-toxic shot in the lead shot in the UK, so I just use 3 number 8s rather than one big non-toxic number 4. It's just what I like. But a basic bulk, if I'm nailing my rig, a basic bulk, a swivel and a couple of number 8s, that'll nail it down, okay, with a 30 centimeter hook length. And if I'm running it through, I tend to add another dropper on just to keep everything a little bit nicer. But the most important thing is when you're plumbing up, generally plumbing up for nailing, you want to plumb up. So as you're going down, I use a big clip-on plummet on that swivel. So I get it so that swivel is just off the bottom. If you're going to put a plummet on your hook, you need to plumb up and work out the length of your hook length so that swivel is just an inch or so off bottom. So when you're holding it dead still, that swivel is just sitting off the bottom with the 30 centimeter hook length on the bottom. Remember, there's a lot less flow very close to the bottom. Yes, there will be flow, but very close to the bottom there'll be less flow, so your hook bait will sit on the bottom, okay. I tend to keep a relatively short length of line between my pole tip and float when I'm fishing a flat float. Say a metre, that's probably a good starting position, means you can react quickly to bites. The other thing is I like to keep my pole tip underneath the water just to make sure it's sunk. In the UK there's no rules that say you can't overshot your flat float unless you're fishing in a match that specifically bans that. So I like to add 2 or 3 shot just to make it slightly too heavy so I can hold my pole tip almost level with the water. And because it's overshotted, it sits really nicely and cleanly. So when a fish picks the bait up, it's critically balanced and you get a quick bite like that, okay. So that's how I basically set my flat floats up. There's lots of magazine features out there showing how we set them up, but that's a basic setup, and that's all you need. I never do anything more complicated than that, because if you start to make things more complicated, obviously then you're prone to more tangles, etc, etc. But that basic setup is going to serve you really well, I'm sure, for what you want to do. Next I've got a message from a Chris Gibson. He says, "Hi Lee, my son Scott spends every penny on Preston tackle. Nearly all his gear carries that brand. Why? I don't actually know, but in his mind he does." So the question really is, as a keen any brand pleasure angler father, what can a brand like Preston do to keep juniors' loyalty moving through their fishing lives, and B, further assist their angling education and experiences? He fishes in a local club called Bay Malton and wins a few and does quite well generally, and he loves his Preston gear and he loves going to Ireland, feeder fishing and waggler fishing. Quite an interesting question there. This isn't a plug for brands. Best way I can probably deal with that is to say to you that Preston do a great job supporting junior projects. We do junior match aid, for example, whereby this year there's over 65 anglers under 18 booked on to a 3-day festival, fully sponsored by Preston Innovations. Last year there was lots of us there on the bank with tips and advice, trying to get the guys involved, taking them further in their fishing and helping them out. There's endless information on the internet not just from Preston but from lots of other brands and like individual anglers like myself now, to show you how to do things basically. On my site there's lots of basic information as well as the blogs that talk about a little bit more technical information. So I like to think that we're all tackle companies are doing as much as they can to push on fishing for juniors in the future and keep them engaged. So, you know, I hope that by answering your question and looking at this, you're gonna take away a little bit more faith in what's going further forward. Okay. Right, I've got a message here from Simon Miller. It says, I'm an amateur pleasure angler who has found your videos of fitting puller kits and making pole rigs and selecting the correct hooks a fantastic help. Always a good start, like I've said before. Can you please think about making a video on how to tie hook lengths and hooks and how to connect them to rigs? That this will be very, very beneficial. Okay, quick answer to this one. I have filmed a video showing how to do hook lengths, showing how I tie them to get them all the same length, and my hook length choice. Okay, it's going to be out very, very soon, so just keep an eye out for that, Simon, and that will help you improve and get your own hook length stacks together. I can say that you can't believe how important getting the right hook length is. Making that change, being versatile and thinking, right, can I up it? Can I make it stronger to stop getting broken off? Or can I make a lighter hook length to get more bites because it's going to be less visual to fish or fool those warier fish is very, very important. So be prepared to get yourself some hook length boxes and tie yourself plenty of hooks up. The hooks for commercial fisheries is a great start. Like I said, I've filmed a video showing exactly how to tie hook lengths. It'll be out very, very soon, so I hope that helps you. Right, next one is, I've got a message from Andy Houghton. He says, I fish whiteacres twice a year. I always fish the Thursday Rover, but I'm seldom lucky enough to draw well, so always end up having to fish some of the less popular waters. Are you sure, Andy? Are you sure? It might be a draw bag, but you probably draw like number 3 and you're not happy with it in the Rover or something like that. Anyway, have you any thoughts on some of the pegs on the waters such as Twin Oaks, Acorn and Jenny's that you think would be worth a go when I draw lower down in the Rovers? Okay, so those of you going to fish Whiteacres Rovers matches, one of the most important bits of advice I can give you is space. Okay? All the hot pegs will be taken straight away. So if you draw an early number, you'll know where the hot pegs are. Twin Oaks, 16, that sort of area. Okay, you can go and sit on those pegs and no doubt do well. But what you can also do is find yourself some space if you draw in the lower numbers. Okay, so I know before when I've gone, I've thought about the areas of the lake I like. For example, on Jenny's Lake, if the wind is blowing down from say north towards peg 0, peg 1, sort of the reception end, if the wind's blowing down there, people don't always go and fish down there, so you'll be able to get in there somewhere and there'll be a lot of carp moving. Go and have a little walk around in the morning, see where there's areas of fish moving. If the wind's blowing the other way, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, they're great pegs for carp. And if somebody decided to sit on peg 15, for example, then I'd run to peg 18, knowing that I had a 3 peg gap between me and 15 and some space to my right. So just try and find yourself a little bit of room. Twin Oaks is the same. I absolutely love pegs 23, 24. If nobody's gone and sat in that area, find yourself some space. Try and give yourself a peg either side. So if you draw the latter numbers, give yourself a bit of room. And that applies to everybody. Don't try and sit down and sit in between two people. When you sit in between two people, you're going to have to do it in the hot areas, but in the poorer areas, try and avoid sitting next to an angler if you can. If you can get a peg either side, it's going to make a massive difference to what you catch. So that's more important than drawing the so-called hot areas. Look for signs of fish moving in the morning and then try and get in on where there's a bit of space. So hopefully that's helped you out. Okay, I got a message from a David Scott. He says, hi Lee, watched your video on how to make pole rigs and now I do mine as in the video, found it very informative. I'm new to pole fishing, would like to know how to tie a 4-inch hook length as it wasn't shown in the video and I can't get it the same length every time. David, that's going to be exactly the same answer as Simon's on that one. Okay, there's a new video coming out soon showing exactly how to get hook lengths the same every time, so I hope that helps you. Okay, I got a message from a Paul Turner who said, I had one of your top coaching days last year, Lee. on my local fishery. I remember you, Paul, caught plenty of fish. It's full of skimmers with the occasional bonus tench. My coaching day was based around using chopped worms and casters for these, and we caught plenty of fish. I'm regularly getting out fish now on the venue by anglers using pellets in the method feeder or pellet feeder. Any help on how to approach 5 hour max on this 5 hour match on this technique would be a great help. Okay, Paul, I remember our coaching day really well. We did catch a lot of fish fishing casters and chopped worms. I will say that casters and chopped worms do work really well later in April and May, so don't lose faith in them just yet. April, May time, I do think that casters and chopped worms still hold a really good chance of doing well, okay? However, method and pellet feeder can be incredibly dominant, so maybe you want to stick with a method or a pellet feeder on the feeder and then keep your chopped worms and casters on the pole, something like that. If you go on the Feeders for Commercial Fishery video on the website, you'll see exactly how to load a method feeder with pellets. Just take some micro pellets, soak them so they're just covered in water. Once they've absorbed the water over half an hour, add a sprinkling of sticky pellet, add a sprinkling of dry match method mixed ground bait, mix them together, and you're going to have some micro pellets there that are absolutely perfect for binding on your method feeder. You need to use the smallest method feeder so you don't go over the top with bait, and you need to really compact your bait on. Look to fish, say, 2 dead red maggots on the hook, a 6mm pellet or a small white bandam. They're going to be great baits for skimmers and tench on that venue that we went to. So give that a try and let me know how you get on, okay? I think that might be it. No, we've got one more. Andy Williams has said, how would you target big F1s 2 to 3 pound on the pole? The venue holds average of 3 to foot in depth and is very silty. It also has a good head of skimmers and bream. Any bait or rigs would be really helpful. Okay, Andy, it's not the easiest question. One thing I would look for immediately is when I plumbed up, I would try to find the area where there isn't as much silt. It might be as close as, say, a metre from the bank. Find the deepest water and then come back until it starts to shallow up quite quickly. You'll feel then on your plummet that the bottom's a bit harder. Sometimes that can be as close to a metre from the bank, and I'll do it, say, 5 or 6 metres down the bank but a metre out. Sometimes that can be 5 or 6 metres out. It's slowly sloping away until it finds the deepest point. Okay, that's a great area to target for big F1s. Very few pellets with a soft expander or a piece of core on the hook can be a great way to catch those fish. I do appreciate that silt can become a problem, okay? The most important thing when on silty bottoms for me is once the fish start to turn the bottom over and it's fizzing greatly, you need to think about moving. Often you can catch a few fish, say 1, 2, 3 fish before you experience problems. So if you're fishing, say 7 metres out in front of you, catch a few fish on your chosen baits, then think about moving 2 metres to your left but still at that 7 metre distance, and just simply start again, and then maybe to the right and start again, then maybe add a metre on and start again. Don't be scared to start 6, 7, 8 times in a day, because it doesn't really matter. All you're looking to do is keep putting a few fish in the net, and what you've got to remember is once you've got fish feeding, they'll be in the area, okay? So a simple move of a couple of metres, they'll easily move for the bait, but you'll have the chance to catch them that little bit quicker, okay, once you start getting them on a bottom that isn't all turned over. Once it's turning over and fizzing and all sorts, you're not going to catch them. You need to move, okay? So just catch what you can, 1, 2, maybe 3 fish, and then try moving. But look for that line with the harder bottom. That is an absolute winner. Also on silty bottoms, don't go nuts with bait. Little amounts of bait. So half a little soft cad pot, or maybe just 5, 6 maggots or pinged pellets, something like that, just to a little bit of bait to get them feeding, catch a few fish, eke it out as long as you can. Big amounts of bait is really asking for a problem on silty bottoms. I hope that helps you out. As you can see, we're getting lots of questions in. I hope all that information has been helpful to you and answered your questions best it can. If you've got anything else, get your questions in to me and we'll get back to you. Cheers, bye.